Welcome back, everyone. Last time I discussed how my asexuality interacts with my mental health and neurodivergence. Today we'll continue recognizing Disability Pride Month by discussing my aromantic identity and how that crosses paths with my ADHD, my depression, and my anxiety disorder. If you're new here, I'm Patrick, and I create content about aromantic and asexual identity, advocacy, education, and more. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss any of those videos in the future. Let's start with the basics. Aromanticism is a romantic orientation where someone experiences little to no romantic attraction. Accepting my aromantic identity was much harder for me compared to my accepting my asexuality. It involved a lot of self-reflection and emotional challenges along the way. I also use micro-labels to describe my aromantic identity, something I don't do for my asexuality. The micro-labels I use are cupio-romantic and ago-romantic. Cupio-romantic means someone who wants a romantic relationship but experiences little to no romantic attraction. And ago-romantic describes someone who feels little to no romantic attraction but has an affinity or love for romance as a concept or idea. The reason I use these micro-labels is because romantic relationships have long been something I hope to find for myself one day. I was always really into love stories growing up and wanted to experience them for myself, to be part of that. I use these labels because that's what aromantic means for me. I'm not repulsed by or even averse to romance. It's something I want to have, something I want to feel, I just don't. I've only known for sure that I have ADHD for about 4 months now since I was diagnosed. It's been good to have a word to claim and some sense of logic behind how my brain operates, but there were definitely signs going back decades. I could go through all the missing assignments in school, the struggles to remember commitments and dates, the times I could have sworn that I texted someone back and apparently never did, but that's a whole video for another time. Today, I'm just focusing on how ADHD interacts with my aromantic identity. Unfortunately, when I have been in relationships, my inattentiveness has caused my partners to feel neglected. I didn't feel any strong pull towards them that I could differentiate from how I feel about my best friends. So I talked with them and spent time with them about the same time that I would have with my friends. I'd share the kinds of moments with them and conversations with them that I would have with my best friends. And sure, there was a physical intimacy that I didn't share with those friends. But really, I just saw my girlfriends as best friends plus making out sometimes. But even other physical closeness wasn't very different. I cuddled and held hands with my best friends throughout high school. Most of my closest friends were girls, so for me to share this closeness with them probably didn't reflect well to my girlfriends that I was actually in a relationship with at that time. But that's just how I showed that I cared about someone. And I would get distracted by the needs of those friends if their needs seemed more immediate, which often did because I struggled to see how a romantic relationship was supposed to be any different. And in my case anyway, my girlfriends wouldn't come right out and say that there was a problem. My girlfriend in my junior year of high school experienced this probably more than any other girlfriend did, which is something that I still feel bad about to this day. I didn't have my driver's license until right before my senior year because I struggled with driver's ed, probably another ADHD issue. So for me, having a job at that time wasn't feasible since I had no one to get me there, and there was no other way to get myself there. I still took her on dates, earning money through shoveling neighbors' driveways and stuff like that, but we'd often need a ride, so we didn't go on a whole lot of dates. I talked with her probably as much as I did my other friends, which I didn't understand as a problem at the time. But probably the one time that she should have been my first person to talk to was when I got my test results from my ACT. I told a different friend first how I did, and that friend ran into my girlfriend and brought it up. Looking back, I fear my inattentiveness made her feel unimportant. But I didn't know how to make her feel more important. It wasn't long after that she broke up with me. She said she felt my heart wasn't in it, that I didn't show her that I wanted to be with her. The combination of my aromanticism keeping me from feeling romantic attraction and my ADHD distracting me from paying more attention to her needs, both things I didn't know were even things that I had at the time, those were the things that ruined that relationship looking back. She was great, honestly. It was me that was the problem. There was another relationship actually the year before that, and one specific story stands out. We were on a double date at a restaurant. I want to say it was Applebee's, but I could be wrong. If you've watched pretty much any of my videos, you'd likely have seen a Brewers baseball jersey or a t-shirt, even the hat that I'm wearing right now. I love baseball, and I especially love this team. And in 2007, when I was in this relationship, was the beginning of their rise out of the gutter of baseball. A young and exciting new group of players like Prince Fielder, Ricky Weeks, J.J. Hardy, Corey Hart, and that year's eventual Rookie of the Year, who just this past weekend got inducted into the Brewers Walk of Fame because of all the things he wound up accomplishing, Ryan Braun. I've talked about how I can tend to get carried away with things I'm interested in, and you can probably tell just from that, I was very invested in that group of players. Probably my favorite era in team history. Well, I'm sitting there at this double date, and the bar of the restaurant is over here on my left. She kept catching me not paying attention or engaging or listening in the date itself, and instead watching the game. I literally couldn't help myself. It's not that I didn't care about being on the date or the people on it. Heck, the girl in the other couple wound up becoming one of my closest friends to this day, and I'm flying to Seattle next month for her wedding. But I get these fixations. Brewers baseball, especially at that time, was one of them. I literally had a calendar in my locker tracking every win and loss first thing in the morning. If you don't follow baseball, there's 162 games in a regular season. That's a lot of games to track. So combine that hyperfixation with also being aromantic, put me in a romantic scenario with that hyperfixation within reach, and sorry to say it, but baseball wins every time. My anxiety also plays off of my aromantic side to a degree. Firstly is dealing with the social pressures to engage in romantic relationships. I don't get uncomfortable when I see other people in relationships. If anything, I'm really happy for them and I enjoy seeing it. But it does bring about mixed emotions for me, especially when those pressures turn on me to find a relationship of my own. I'll be honest, I skipped my 10-year high school reunion and would probably skip future ones because I feel like I wouldn't fit in there anymore. People would be asking me if I'm married, if I have kids, if I'm seeing anyone. Those kinds of events feel like they'd be a lot of people competing with each other to see where everyone is. And by their standards, I'd be really far behind. I said their standards because that's not how I measure myself and where I am in life. But I also can't control how other people would see me. I can't void out those pressures when I'm not the one creating them. Then there's the anxiety of how to handle situations like that. Do I come out? Try to explain what aromantic, and for that matter, aroace actually mean? Well, then there's the anxiety of their reaction. Will they invalidate me? Say something offensive? Ask invasive questions? The thoughts start to spiral, and my brain does this thing of planning out every possible outcome of a conversation. It's kind of like I'm Doctor Strange seeing all the possible outcomes of giving up the time stone, only on a much smaller scale because I'm usually only able to see a couple of possible results, and oftentimes a positive outcome isn't among them. My thoughts tend to focus on the worst outcomes, and then talk me out of it before I can even think of the good that could come from it, especially when it's someone I don't know very well, or maybe used to, but not for a really long time. And depression deeply affects my aromanticism, and this topic is particularly sensitive for me. Before I begin talking about this part, I want to preface that this may be troubling for some folks. There's been years of darkness I've had to work through. So if that's something you think you might be sensitive to hearing, you can stop the video now. Here's how depression interacts with my aromantic identity. Depression can erode my self-esteem and lead to questions of validity of my aromanticism. It can create a sense of being broken or incomplete for not experiencing romantic attraction. Sometimes I feel like I'm not worthy of love, that I don't deserve it, especially if I can't return it. With all the amatonormativity thrown at us, with this narrative that to love is to be human, there's been times it made me question, what's the point? Like, before I figured out that I'm aromantic, I wondered, what am I doing here if I can't have that one thing that everyone's supposed to have? If I can't feel what I'm supposed to feel, even though I want to, even though I want that closeness, that kind of connection, even though I've wanted my own story like that all my life, to find that person who makes me feel those things, only to know it's not a matter of someone else, but it's a matter of me. I felt so alone, so unimportant, so unloved, so broken inside. There were many times I couldn't see my way through it. I couldn't find things to hold on to, couldn't see a future for myself. When I was a teenager especially, I didn't think I'd still be here now. I really didn't. My head was in such a dark place, going through these cycles where I'd feel okay for a little while and then it would just hit me. The thought of being alone for the rest of my life made me question if that was a life worth seeing through. I was blinded by that pressure, by that loneliness, so much so that I couldn't see the amazing relationships that I do have. It took a long time to see through that. And some days are better than others, but I'm getting there. I'm realizing which relationships matter most to me, which ones build me up instead of tear me down. I'm trying to focus on those. There are some that, I'll be honest, I haven't had the courage to work through repairing just yet. But I'm working on that too. Despite these challenges, there are ways to manage and find support. The first is therapy. Therapy has been crucial in helping me process my emotions and understand my aromanticism. It's a place where I can explore my identity without judgment. There's also community support. Finding and engaging with communities that support both aromanticism and mental health can offer a sense of belonging and understanding. Finding a support group can be that for you. It has for me. Practicing self-care strategies like mindfulness and having creative outlets have been really essential in managing my mental health and embracing my aromantic identity. I'm still working on that embracing part, but it's getting better. If you're struggling with your mental health, it's important to reach out for support. There are some resources in the description of this video that might help. Navigating aromanticism while dealing with things like ADHD, depression, and anxiety can be complex, but it's also a journey of growth and self-acceptance. I hope that sharing my experiences has been helpful and that you feel a bit more understood yourself. If you have any thoughts or experiences that you'd like to share, please leave a comment below. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and follow for more Aro and Ace content. Thank you for being here, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.